Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of What's Coming Down the 5e Pike. I am your host, Chris Doyle, obviously along with Captain Pike, our mascot. I already see that the chat is filling up. Hey, everybody, how's it going, G Blaster? Everybody's chatting away in there, which is awesome. Really looking forward to this announcement stream. I guess we'll call. I guess we'll call it an announcement show. We have a lot of really cool things to show you. I've got a lot of really awesome images to show you guys. I hope you like monsters. You're going to see lots of monsters. And then we've got a fantastic, I'm excited just the 10 minutes in the green room before the show. It's like, Brendan got me all excited about this show, even more excited. So this is going to be great. So let's get through what we got to get through now and get to the fun stuff. So everybody welcome. We're going to talk about a bunch of new things coming down the 5e Pike. Yes, 500 Monster Manual. Yes, we're doing it, man. 500 plus, 500 plus. So let's talk about a couple of things. So Crypt of the Double Etch, for all of you backers out there, yes, the printing is just about wrapping up. Things are going to be on a boat soon, so I know we're in the worst part of it right now. We're in the waiting part, but it's happening. It's happening. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that. Dark Tower. Dark Tower, we are still on schedule for a June delivery next year. Believe it or not, folks, we are really busting it to try and get these things on a schedule now that we're kind of situated with our tasks and everything. So fingers crossed that the world stays semi-normal, and that we get Dark Tower to everybody in the middle of next year. Caverns of Thracia, which we announced as OAR number 8. Yes, I believe I'm getting that right. Is already well into the development process. We're basically getting ready for artwork and some fun stuff to be happening on that project. So we are just cranking along. But I know a lot of people probably want to hear about what's going on with Dungeon Denizens, our massive monster book. So let's just get right to that. I know it's been, again, another long time, but 500 plus monsters, folks. 500 color art pieces take a lot of time by our small staff of artists. So we are still plugging away at that. The crowdfunding campaign is going to be coming soon. We're going to call it. Soon. I wish I had a little bit more of a finite a date on that, but let's just say stay tuned. You guys will hear it from us. We'll either be talking about it on Talking TSR or on the website blog. But we do have a ton of images that I can show you. And we're gonna pop up these images one at a time, and I'm gonna say a couple of words on each one. So Elena, when you pop up the image, just leave it up there while I kind of give a little bit of blurb about each individual monster. So let's start off with hey, there it is. It's already up there. Wow, she's ahead of me, folks. Welcome to the Anthracite Dragon. So this was by one of our new folks that we found in our open call. And the Anthracite Dragon, we've got some really awesome nastiness for you. We've got all 4 age classes for this guy, starting at Wormling, Young, Adult, and Ancient. He's got a Pyroclastic Breath Weapon. He's awesome. I'm telling you, he's gonna be really cool. Regional effects and lair actions included as well. He's gonna be quite the spread for the write-up. So that's our first guy. Let's move on to our second one. Image B, which is the giant static bat. I think you folks might recognize some of the artwork here, some of the artists and everything. So this is really cool. So we have regular static bats, we have swarms of static bats, and then we've got the giant static bat. So we've got all of your CRs kind of covered there. And this guy's great because basically imagine a bat, and every time it flaps its wings, it generates electricity, and then it releases that electricity in an aura. So if you're just near the bat, you're taking damage. And then obviously if you get bitten by the bat, well, you know what happens when you touch your cat when he's been walking across the shag carpet. So that's where we got with the giant static bat. Our next one is the giant dungeon web spider. We can pull that guy up. So we have many spiders. Giant spiders, one of the more tropier things in role-playing games, I think. The giant dungeon web spider is just one of them. We have a bunch. We have a spitting spider. We have sand spiders. We have rust spiders, which is not really a spider, but kind of a classic take on the rust monster, but you would never expect it from a spider. That's always a great fun. So this guy's got his own kind of poison, and he can actually blast his webs. So you know, not only do you have to worry about running into his webs, but he can actually blast them at you. It's just kind of cool. Okay, so I think we're ready for our next one. If we could pop up the next image, this is the Emerald Wanderer. This is some fantastic artwork. Love that artwork by, I believe Will did that one. So this guy is a wandering undead shape changer, which is kind of interesting. And he's got a really cool ability. He actually steals the traits of the combatants that he's facing in. And we included a cool little table, a random table that gives you a sample of what you could do. So it's like when you run into one of these guys, he already has like 1 to 4 of these traits, and it could be something like stone cunning from a dwarf, or it could be a drow's ability to levitate, or just, you know, it could be stench, a troglodyte stench. So it's kind of neat. You have no idea what you're getting into when you fight one of these guys. So really, really awesome. We'll pop up our next one, which is letter E, and this is the Fungal Colossus. So imagine a gigantic Godzilla-sized uh, fungal mass that can walk around and stomp on you. This one was inspired directly from the Errol Otis artwork from the cover of one of the books that we're going to be putting out. He's got poison spores, which is really awesome. He can stomp on you. He can smack you around with those tendrils and everything. A lot of cool things. Plus, he's massive. It's a colossus, so I mean, it's like you're gonna take some serious damage from him. And we've actually added a couple of unique traits just for our colossuses and our gargantuan creatures. That once we get into the Kickstarter, we're going to talk a little bit about more. I'm going into some more detail there. Okay, we can pull up the next one. Which is a were shark. Okay, so this was cool. So when I asked for the artwork on this one, I was like, you know, I've seen a lot of were sharks before, but I've not seen hammerhead were sharks. So I had to ask for a hammerhead. You know, think about it. Kind of like a were boar in a sense. You know, boisterous, cruel, definitely evil. These guys are almost never going to be good guys. Obviously, they're going to be in taverns and shanties by the sea and everything, and they can assume the form of a large shark. So I think we use these guys in OAR number 2, Isle of Dread, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I wouldn't say, yeah, never good guys, but most of the time, not good guys. So, all right, moving on to our next image. This is again another glorious piece of art that I love. It's like I always like to buy a piece of art from one of the artists in one of the books I work on. I have gonna have a hard time trying to pick out of the 500 pieces of art to hopefully purchase for this one, but this one's definitely a contender. This is the Moss Giant. Again, gargantuan. He's the size of a hill. You could walk over this guy, not even know he's there. But if you do wake him up, now this guy's usually a good guy. But if you do something, you know, terrible to the land, he can actually harness the land itself to actually attack you, which is awesome. And so watch out for this guy. Sometimes works with druids, but you know, he could also be, you know, a force of nature literally as well. So look out. I think we'll pull up our next image now, which is the Strix Alpha. Again, gorgeous, gorgeous. Look at the detail on the artwork on this guy. Fantastic. This is a small thief-like avian humanoid. He's got mimicry and screech traits, which is kind of cool. But he also has like pack tactics, which are goblins have, which is kind of neat. And he also has some diving tactics, so he can like dive and do some dive bombing at you while he's attacking. So, G Blaster, yes, there will be 5e and DCC versions of Dungeon Denizens, and yes, there will be several covers. We're still working at the details on what the covers are going to be, and if there's going to be a slipcase. But yes, you know us with our covers. We'll have everybody covered. Don't you worry. Full different design teams working on the DCC side, and working on the 5e side. All right, we have a couple more of these guys to plug on through. If you can pop up the next image, we got the Trusker Slayer, and I believe Doug did the artwork on this one. So this is, imagine a woolly mammoth giant humanoid kind of thing. Walks around on 2 legs. He's got the big old tusks and everything. Again, generally a good guy. This is the Trusker Slayer. So you got a regular Trusker, we got the Slayer. Slayer's kind of like a ranger, like again, protector of nature, and protector specifically of mammoth herds up north. So really cool concept. That was by one of our freelance designers. And our last one, we have, if you pull up the final artwork, we have the Woodwose Lord, which is an ancient plant creature. Actually, there's a collection of these guys, and the Lord is the one that's kind of in control of them all. They're organized in communes, and the Lord is the guy who kind of oversees the whole commune. And what's really kind of cool about this guy is not unlike the old Myconids, he's got distress spores that he can release, which will let all the other Woodwoses in the area know that he's like under attack or something or taking damage, so that they can all come and help him. So I thought that was kind of a neat trait. So that's it. That's our kind of whirlwind tour of some artwork. The artwork is coming in literally by the day for this. We are just cranking them out. The team is cranking them out in between all their other projects, DCC number 100 and Dying Earth. It is a good time to be an artist for Goodman Games. There is no lack of work to do. Yes, that was Doug, I believe, on the Trusker artwork, I believe. Okay, so let's move on to our next thing. So we just wrapped up an Indiegogo campaign for our Monsters and Magic of Lankmar. That wrapped up, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, either today or 2 weeks ago tomorrow. But what I wanted to announce on that, what's really cool is that is already off to the printer. I know it's not a large book and everything, but we are really trying to get ourselves in a place where when we do one of these crowdfunding campaigns, we have things are ready to go, literally. And this one, we're very happy that we got this guy out to the printer already. So this one's going to be in backers' hands probably in a couple of months. And we got the cover art shown right there, and I've got a couple of sample interior pages I could show off to you. So the first one there, Elena's already pulled this one up. Full page artwork by Janelle Jacquez, which is amazing. That's some of the new spells there that you can see. If you want to toggle to the next one, is it toggle? Is toggle the right word? And the next one we have, that's some of the magic items. So there's a nice big sidebar there about where's all the unique magic items. So Michael Curtis actually talks about them. And we got a couple of artwork, and then that's the Warcat whistle is one of the magic items in there. And then finally, of course, it's called Monsters and Magic of Lankmar. We've got lots of monsters. We've got the behemoth there, and we've got the beloved of, I'm going to say Taya is probably what it is. I'm not familiar with Fritz Leiber's writings. But what's really cool is we open this book up we put a bibliography actually in the beginning of the book, and I thought this was a really cool idea. At first I saw this bibliography in like the second page of the book, like, wow, that needs to go in the back. But then I really looked at it and I said, you know what, this actually makes sense. It's in the front. Michael did a wonderful job creating this bibliography, and he actually went in. It's comprehensive, but he actually went in and he highlighted what he felt the essential Fritz Leiber stories were. And it was so cool. I printed that page out and I gave it to my wife, because my wife is actually currently rereading Fritz Leiber right now. And I was like, hey, this is kind of neat. So now she has this curated little list by somebody who knows a lot more about Fritz Leiber than I do, and she does. So pretty exciting. I'm very excited for this book to be getting in folks' hands sooner than later. All right. So we are moving right along here, and I am just checking the chat. It looks like we are good. Yes, we got lots of good comments about our monsters. So we're now going to talk about some upcoming releases. And you will notice this is the reason why we've got Uncle Brendan on as our special guest today. I'm going to talk about two projects that he has actually been involved in. So the first one we're going to talk about is FEF number 22, Caverns of the Sea Strangers. And if you can pull up that artwork, Elena, that would be great. And I said, so this is the 22nd of this book that we've done. And I'm going to be honest with you, folks, that is probably my favorite cover of all 22 of them. And I've written several of them, but I still think that is a phenomenal cover. I love the dragon turtle coming up. I mean, the artist got the nose, the nostrils right with that they kind of have nostrils, like snapping turtles have nostrils that way, so that they can kind of stick their little nose up and breathe and not show off their whole body and everything. Not that it's easy to hide a gargantuan body, but so I'm really excited about this adventure. This was originally, and we're going to get into this guy a little bit more, so I just want to show you a couple of pages in that. This was originally a first edition adventure that Brendan wrote, and he'll give us the exact time. I think it was close to 10 years or even more than 10 years ago. And we've had it literally lying around in the archives, and we're like, this has got to get printed. It's like too good not to be. So I actually converted it earlier this year, and it was a blast. It's so old school feely. You're gonna love it, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about it later. But we've got a couple of sample pages I could show off right now. If Elena, you want to pop those up? We've got this first one here. There's a really cool Minotaur encounter early on, where basically this Minotaur gets trapped and he gets pushed into a pit, and he's stuck in a pit and he can't climb out. But there's no maze down there. But there's a storeroom and there's like stuff to do. So there's like a pickaxe and there's like some oil and stuff. So he actually makes his own maze with the pickaxe and the oil, and he lights it on fire so that if the PCs actually fall down into the pit, he can light the fire, and now there's a fire maze and everything. So we've got like a separate little map for that. We want to toggle to the next page, please. We've got this is our big bad of the encounter of the adventure, Gomer Rattlestash, who's a gnome illusionist, bad dude. You can see there he's summoning a couple of wraiths. Just not a good character. And so he's our I say big bad, and I'm using some air quotes there because he is just a gnome, but he mostly uses his illusions to disguise himself, so you really don't know who he is. You might run into him a couple times and not even know who he is. And then we can go to the last one, and this is a great example of I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So when I was doing the conversion, you got a nice picture here. You've got a boat on the one page, and then you've got this spider. And if you look carefully at the spider, you can see the spider's actually spitting poison at the bad guys. So the original design of the adventure called for a giant spider, and we were designing this for 7th level PCs. So for 5th edition, it didn't make sense to have one CR1 creature. So we had two CR creatures, and I was gonna just make it like a excuse me, a bigger spider. I need a drink of water. But I decided, hey, I have 500 plus monsters in this book that we're putting together. So I actually went into that book and pulled out the giant spitting spider from that book and put them in this. And this is something you guys are going to see us doing probably as we move forward. We're going to start opening up these archives, these monsters available to our writing team, so that they can use them for projects. So you're going to actually get a sample. There's actually 2 monsters in Caverns of the Sea Strangers that we pulled from Dungeon Denizens. So I thought that was kind of cool, and I just wanted to call folks' attention to that. The next thing that we're going to talk about is FEF 23, and this is the 5e version of the Sunless Garden. So if folks went to Gen Con, they know that we actually converted the original DCC number 10, Brendan's classic, The Sunless Garden from the 3E days, to 5E, and we had it as a special release, special cover for Gen Con. And you can only get that cover at Gen Con, and that was a very limited release. That sold out. It is all gone. But we have a retail release with brand new artwork on it. And we're showing that off right now with the wonderful, that is Knockmort the Treant in all of his 5e glory. And we had a great guy by the name of Mihailo Teshik. I think I'm saying his name right. And he's the one who did the 5e conversion. He also did the DCC conversion, which is awesome. The fact that he could do both of those, because there's some great synergies there, that he was part of that project on both sides of the house, which is amazing. So this is exciting too. This sucker came out to be about 40 pages. The old DCC modules were a little bit longer than our current fairs. So this is a solid book. And we're gonna get into some more details on it. I've got a couple of pages if Elena, if you want to show off. We have a few sample pages. Oh, she didn't get those, so I can't show you those guys. So you're gonna have to buy it if you want to see it. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. And one more last thing. Before I bring on our special guest, I want to tease a project that's coming out next year. So FEF number 24 is literally going off to the printer very soon. Oh, I probably should have mentioned that FEF 22 is it's going to be in stores in about 3 to 4 weeks. I believe it's just getting to the warehouse, or it just got to the warehouse. So 22 is going to be at the stores very soon, and then number 23 is coming right behind that, a couple weeks past that. So now, yes, I want to show off the cover art of FEF number 24, which is going to be published sometime early next year. Literally going off to the printer within a day or so. This is the Prism of Redemption. This was our 5e adventure, our 5e tournament from Dungeon Con Online a year and a half ago, I think it was at this point. So this is a 2-round team tournament. We've converted it for campaign play, but we've left all the tournament trappings there, including pre-generated characters and all the scoring sheets. So you can score this and compare your scores to how the final teams did in their rounds. So this will be our longest FEF module to date, coming in at a very robust 64 pages. I'm extremely excited about that. That one was a labor of love. I got a chance to play test it. I got a chance to work with the author to develop it. It's been amazing. So that's just a little bit of a tease for next year. Next show we'll probably talk about that one a lot more. But I think right now I see 20 sides to every story is in the chat. Hey, how's it going, Alex and or crew? Very excited. They're very excited to hear that Sunless Garden is coming. Remembering the 3.5 version very, very well, as do we. So we're going to take a quick pause here, and then we're going to come back with Brendan LaSalle, our special guest. And we are back. Welcome back, folks. And look who we have. We have special guest Uncle Brendan LaSalle in person. Now, all right, Brendan, I think most people from the DCC side know who you are, but I think there could be one or two people maybe on the 5e side that have no idea who you are. So I'm gonna hit a bunch of questions. First of all, say hello to everybody and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for tuning in to Coming on the 5e Pike. So my name is Brendan LaSalle. I'm a game designer. I have been in the industry since 2002. I'm probably best known for the X-Crawl role-playing game, which I've been doing for a long, long time. And then I came to Goodman like a little bit later in the game, but I've now primarily I work on Dungeon Crawl Classics. I actually, for the most part, until today, until just now, or very, very recently, it's been nothing but DCC for me. And I'm a staff writer, and I'm also head of the DCC Road Crew. So some of you might know me from that, even if you're 5e, because obviously Road Crew is completely open to 5e GMs.
Awesome. So, great. Well, welcome, Brendan. I'm so psyched to be here. So I think I met you before this, but the first time you ran a game for me, I believe it was 2008, maybe 2009. X-Crawl at the Embassy Suites I believe it was in Joe's room, maybe it was mine, but Joe, myself, Rick Maffei, my Talking TSR compatriot, Ken Hart.
Ken Hart was there, yeah.
Ken Hart was there. I think Doug was there. I might be wrong.
I don't think it was Doug. It was a husband and wife that I haven't played with in a long time. I was trying to think of it for the show, but
wow. Well, anyway, that was the first time I met you, and the first time I got to know you. And when I say got to know you, got to know your game mastering style. And folks, let me tell you, if you have not played a game with Brendan, you must. I mean, I thought I was a good game master. And I was in awe for 4 hours or as long as we played and everything. I learned so much, and it was, I'll be honest with you, it was probably one of the more entertaining times I've ever had. I am generally a game master. I don't play a whole lot because I get frustrated when game masters suck. So, I do. And I sit there and I'm like, I can do better than this. And I get all angsty and everything. And I just had such a blast. We had such a good time. I believe Ken Hart was playing a cleric. For some reason, that sticks out in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the first time I played X-Crawl, and at first I was like, X-Crawl, I don't even know what the heck this is all about. But after 10, 15 minutes, we were into it, and it was great. So I would thank you.
That's so cool. Well, dude, thank you. You know what I remember from that game? The one thing is that Joseph Goodman, his character's name was Dr. Pepper, and all of his powers were Dr. Pepper based. Like he would say, like all of his spell things, he'd crack a can and whatever. So,
and I think that was because I was drinking Dr. Pepper, because I'm a huge Dr. Pepper drinker, and that could very well be where he was looking around saying, "What's the name of my character going to be?" And he's like, "Oh, Dr. Pepper." I think, but that's great. Now that you mention that, I do remember that now. That is great. I have to mention that to Joe the next time I talk to him. So, so let's get to know Brendan a little bit. So, Brendan, when did you start tabletop role-playing gaming? Do you remember the day, the year?
I don't remember the day, but I had to check with the family records for the year. I started in 1977 because I'm old. Yeah, my mom's best friend was on sabbatical in California. I was living on Long Island at the time. I was living in either Hempstead or Uniondale, I don't recall at that time. But we went to California to visit with my mom's best friend and her family, who were there for a year on sabbatical. And their son, who was about my age, was like, "Hey, have you tried this yet?" And he had Blue Book Holmes, and we did this crazy hybrid, like, had nothing to do with the book kind of a game, but like you got the feel for it. And I absolutely fell in love. And then came back from there. Didn't play for a little while because I didn't have the books. I didn't know anybody. But then I joined Boy Scouts like a year or two after that, and wound up like my whole Boy Scout troop pretty much played. So like suddenly there was a group. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, it's been a minute.
Nice. 77. That is good. You got me beat by like 4 years, dude. 4 years.
Old, baby.
That's
Old.
a lot.
But our game was so ridiculous. I remember specifically like my character had a Daggett from Battlestar Galactica. Like that was like my adventuring companion, and he, you know what I mean? Like it was like we were using action figures as our as our minis. You know what I mean? So it was just like it was literally anything goes. And it was so fun. It was just like roll a d20, and if you get high, it worked out. If not, so.
Yeah, I totally agree. We the first couple of years we played, we didn't play right. I would say I didn't learn about saving throws until probably at least a year after I was playing the game. When someone was like, "Wait, you just died." Wow. It's like, "Didn't you make your saving throw?" And I was like, "What's a saving throw?" And it was like, because it's like it was buried in the Dungeon Master's Guide somewhere. It didn't tell you where these things were. And you didn't read a rule book. I mean, there's no way I'm reading a book that size when I'm that age. I'm 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
So it's like you learn from your friends, and if your friends didn't teach you the right way to play, we thought in D, where D was like damage, we thought that was dexterity. We thought everything had dexterity. So it's like, oh, this guy has a 3 to 18 dexterity. That's pretty good. It's like, no, he does 3 to 18 damage. We were totally, everything was dexterity back in the day. We were maybe we're just fascinated with the word. I don't know.
Sure. No, I get it.
We were totally not playing it right at all for many, many years. I would say I probably didn't start playing D&D right probably till like 85, 86 probably, when I was like really started figuring it out. And again, my early frustrations, I was like, wait, this dude doesn't know what he's doing. I need to get behind the screen. I'll figure this out. So it's just the way I roll. So
you're a born boss of the game, Chris. A born boss.
Like I'm happiest when I'm behind the screen from the one side. I get all angsty when I'm a player. It's amazing. So and I've tried a couple times. My one buddy's was trying to do a modern game, and oh my god, modern game is so hard to do. And I was playing, and I had to leave after a couple weeks of it. I was like, dude, I can't do it. It's like you're frustrating the out of me, and I'm like, it's just not fun. So
that's classic.
Play test the game with Chris. That's correct. Do not play test the game with me. So so obviously D&D is your first tabletop role-playing love. Do you have a favorite non-D&D system that you played over the years?
Okay, so Villains and Vigilantes will always have a special place in my heart because that was the first game I actually ran. So I found that we used to go to Waterloo Hobbies out on Long Island, and it was like the world headquarters of Villains and Vigilantes. And I remember looking at it being like, there's a role-playing game where I can play a superhero. I was a big comic book nerd, so I was very excited by that. So that was the one that I bought and I read. Looking back, I know I didn't do that very well either. Like mistakes were made, and I just house ruled a lot of things I understand. But that was the first thing I ever ran, so that will always be special to me. In modern times, I still love Castles and Crusades. And I'll break that out in a thrice. Like I feel like C&C is beautiful in that you can like pick up one of the old 70s or 80s AD&D modules and just run it with zero prep and just like, you know what I mean? Just like, oh, I'll do it with this, because I still have a lot of those old, the classic era adventures. So for that, but then I've actually tried a lot of systems of late. I've been doing Delta Green and that was just a lot of fun. I've been doing like some of the little minimalist games like Into the Odd. We've been messing around with lately. So, I try to, these days, obviously Dungeon Crawl Classics is 95% of what I do, but I still try to be open to new systems, and I try to learn new systems. I just don't have the patience anymore to like pick up and learn it well enough to run it for somebody. It's been a very long time since I've done that,
Okay. Well, I'm going to skip ahead. I want to jump to a different question then, because this is a perfect segue. So what is your favorite classic TSR module?
Okay. For me, my favorite of those is the Temple of Elemental Evil, which is that whole arc. I mean, I love them all. I love the Giants adventures. I love the Drow. I love the Slave Lords ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like as far as like running something, sometimes I feel like I know the village of Hamlet better than like anywhere I've ever lived. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I could wander around in my imaginings to that place. And it was a real perfect time like for gaming in my life. And it was like, like I've run it at every stage. I ran it, in AD&D. I ran it with second ed. I ran when the 3.0 version came out. I was all over it. That, and I mean, I ran that one to like the edge. You know what I mean? Like all the way through. And I'm actually running it. I'm running it like we took a break, but I've been running it with my weekly version using Dungeon Pro Classics with the OAR edition, and using like the higher level, like using the higher level stuff for the actual temple, the actual thanes and all that, So I'm crazy about it.
Awesome. Very, very
Yeah,
cool. Love it. Love it. Okay. So now we'll jump back to our regular scheduled program. So do you have a cool story on how you found Goodman Games? Like, do you remember when you first found Goodman Games, or I'm
I
going to assume it was
absolutely
at a convention?
Well, I cannot exactly. So, I was working on Xcrawl at the time. I was, already like, I was already putting that together for Panda Head Productions, which was the first publisher that I ever worked with. And I had a job at a mall game store. It's called the Gamekeeper. I don't know if they still have those anymore, but it was like a holiday job. And it was like me and like, really, they sold a lot of board games and a lot of fancy chess, but everybody who worked there was a role-playing game guy. I mean, just like, to our booths, and we just kind of hung out and talked gaming all day, every day. And we got a copy of Bronchosaurus Rexit, which was I don't know if it was the first, one of the first Goodman Games releases. And I was like, I am in love with this. I was like, this is amazing. This guy is like, he's like me. Like I saw it being like Xcrawl in that it was American-based fantasy, which is what I was doing, you know what I'm saying? But also in that he took a ridiculous premise, which was, the Civil War in space with dinosaurs, which just saying that, this is before mashups were big too. This is one of the first real culture mashups. I was like, but he took that crazy premise and then he treated it really seriously, the same way I do with Xcrawl, which is like this ridiculous situation that I then treat very seriously while acknowledging how absurd it is overall, So I went to the Alliance open house. We went there. It was before we actually had the book, but I saw Goodman Games had a booth and there was a guy there setting it up. I'm like, all right, I have to go over and introduce myself to the Goodman Games rep. I'm such a fan. I'm like, hey man, I'm the hugest fan of Goodman Games. I told him about this, and he's like, it's me. I'm Joseph Goodman. So I met him there. I met him there that weekend, and it was like, oh, like you're Goodman Games. You're the dude. And we kind of hit it off. And I remember I told him about the premise to Xcrawl, and he kind of got this look on his face, and he's like, "Yeah, that's a really good one. I like that," And every time I talked to him, he'd mention how he liked it as a premise. So years later, when I was just full-time freelance and wasn't really working on Xcrawl thing anymore, he gave me my first non-Xcrawl work, which was in fact the Sunless Garden.
Nice.
First thing I ever did for him, and now I feel like it's kind of come around full circle at this point. So
yeah, awesome. Oh, that is so cool. That is very, very cool. And just and mental note that I actually worked at a Gamekeeper also for like
did you month. Really? Hush!
I did. For
Solidarity.
Like
yes. Yeah, I was there like for holidays,
and then I quit.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a great, I mean, it was like I said, it was fun in that, like, I played my first ever and only game of GURPS on the clock. You know what I mean? One day when the manager wasn't in, the assistant manager was like, "It's slow, get the stuff,"
Yeah.
I mean, I had a lot of fun, but I wouldn't call it a great. I got exposed to a lot of games that I still like. You know what I'm saying? Like, Rook.
Definitely.
I was a big Rook fan back when. I haven't played forever, but like, games like that. So.
And I do remember those chess sets too.
Oh my god, a whole wall of them.
Yeah, they were big on the chess sets.
So, oh yeah. I was holiday help. And so the mall was filled. This was here in Georgia. The mall was completely full. So what I would do is if I saw someone like looking at a chess set through the window, I'd walk up and like move a piece like aggressively, like, yeah, come on, are we doing this? And, I sold a few.
Awesome. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So
that's so cool. You worked there though, man. I can't believe it. That's
so
cool.
I worked at one in central New Jersey. But like I said, I worked there long enough to know, I don't want to do this.
Solidarity, dude.
So I think they were purchased by Wizards of the Coast actually, and then they were put out of it because Wizards of the Coast had mall stores for a brief time, and then I think they got rid of them all at some point. So
I
yeah,
mean,
so I think
yeah,
I'm not 100% sure on that.
yeah.
So all right, let's do some fun questions now, some really
All right.
cool stuff. So I love just doing this, just get most people probably have had Brendan be their game master for years and years, and they might not know the answer to some of these questions. So here we go. Brendan, what is your favorite food? What is that go-to comfort food that you love?
Sure. If I am on the road, like eating out, I am a huge fan of Popeyes fried chicken, and I would eat that to excess. I can't get enough Popeyes. At home, I love red beans and rice. I make a lot of red beans and rice here at the house. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? So I'm a
Yeah,
fan.
yeah. But you're
That's
not
my
from the South, though. You are not
so
originally,
so
or are you?
I was born in New York, right? But
Yep.
my mom's from New York, but my dad is Louisiana Creole. So like
Okay.
we
There
went
you
back a
go.
lot, and
Yeah.
I've kind of lived most of my life in the South, like
Okay.
just percentage wise. Like we left for New York when I was 13. I went back briefly in my 20s, lived there for a couple of years, worked production out there. But I spent most of my years in the South, so
Okay.
I'm very Southern in a lot of ways.
Yep.
I'm kind of a mixed bag of everything, mixed
Yeah.
race, mixed bag, mixed
That
everything.
makes sense. The red beans, right? That makes sense. Totally, totally. Okay, I'm not a music aficionado. What is your favorite band? And then I'll just let you
See,
expound on that.
I was telling Elena before the show, I'm like, that could be a whole show because I will totally talk your ear off.
Okay,
So I
writing this
had to
down.
think about it.
Whole show.
I could literally sit here and talk bands with you. I'm a big music guy, and I could all day if you liked it. However, if gun to my head, I had to pick one band like forever. Motorhead, huge Motorhead
Okay.
fan, and
Okay.
like they I feel like Motorhead is one of the few bands that never let you down. There's not one bad song on there. Every time I saw them in concert, they were amazing. You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
never,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, they beat up a lot of dudes, but I mean, it seemed like those guys were asking for it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even mad about that. So,
Oh God, that's hilarious. All right, so this is the one that always gets everybody. So I kind of changed it. So this is what is your top three favorite movies? And it might be better to look at this as like favorite comedy,
sure.
favorite sci-fi fantasy, favorite like serious movie, or whatever categories you want to go with. So because it's
All
fun.
right.
Movies are like bands. It could be a whole show. So I get
No,
that.
no, totally. So I'll say that my favorite action movie is the 36 Chambers of Shaolin Kung Fu, aka The Master Killer, with
Okay.
Gordon Liu. There's just nothing better. You know what I'm saying? I could watch that every week and never get bored, and
Okay.
that's amazing. My favorite comedy isn't that old. I love Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's right in my
Really?
happy place. Yeah, it's right
Okay.
in my happy place. It's like a super high budget hayseed film. It's just funny, and the dialogue in that is hysterical, and like it's like I didn't realize it, but it really prepped me up for Shutter Mountains, which I'm crazy about. You know what I'm saying? It has that
Okay.
kind of like, a kind of
Yeah.
like rustic feel. And then I'll say my favorite musical.
Wow, dude,
Ah,
folks, you are
yeah.
getting it here. We are
Ah,
getting it from. We are
ah,
getting this
yeah.
deep cuts
Because
here.
I like a musical is Dreamgirls, which I'm crazy about. So
Wow.
if you know what I mean, I'll never understand people that don't like singing, dancing, and beautiful costumes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So go watch Dreamgirls. It's amazing. It'll blow your mind if you haven't seen it. So
All right. Oh, that is awesome, dude. That's amazing. Good, so cool. All right. Two more. What is your favorite vacation spot to go
See,
and
that's
unwind
hard. I
and
have not gone on a whole lot of vacations, right?
okay. But
But
where would you maybe want to go then?
if I could, I have always wanted to. I've always wanted to do Hawaii. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
I love the beach. I kind of I go I like going to the mountains too. Sometimes like I've been a few times. I've been up to the North Georgia mountains and just like been in that peace and quiet for a couple of days. I'm like there aren't really any place I've been more than once, unless you count Europe as a
Hmm.
place, which is obviously ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I've been to Mexico City Beach in Florida twice, and
Okay.
always had a great time there. So I don't know if that
Nice.
counts.
Okay, yeah, no, that totally counts. That totally is. I do. I've done Hawaii. Hawaii is awesome. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
it's like being in a different country, world, and not. I mean, it's just fascinating. I mean, it's just the temperature is fascinating. I tell you, I had a blast there. So that definitely endorse that. Okay, so here's the real deep thinky question here. If you could have dinner or an extended conversation with any one person, living or dead, famous or not famous, who
Mhm.
would it be?
I will take Neil deGrasse Tyson because I've always wanted to write a science fiction novel, and I would just pick his brain all night. He would hate me. You know what I mean? But
Okay.
I have all these sci-fi questions. The reason I don't do sci-fi stuff is because it blows my mind to think about these things. I have a
Hmm.
lot of a lot of little nitpicky things that I would like to ask, about interstellar travel and about different planets and things. So I think Neil deGrasse Tyson would be mine. I think I want to go and have dinner with him and be like, so let's talk about relativity and time space and how that really what would that look like? That's what my question is. How would it actually look? How would it look to like leave the Earth and come back and 2 years pass for you and 20 years pass for everybody else? What would that I think about it all the time. Like how would a time debt actually feel? How would traveling on a long distance in gravity actually feel? You know what I mean? So I,
Yeah,
I think I think I have to go with him and just really bother the poor fellow, and
that's
he'd hate me.
awesome.
He would hate me.
Yeah, I love that though. That's a great answer. That's a great answer. All right. So I think some folks probably want to hear about your contributions to the 5e world here.
I'm
So let's
ready.
let's get
Buckle
into
out.
it. So let's first talk about FEF 22, Caverns of the Sea Strangers.
I know,
So
right?
yeah, so again, when do you remember when you wrote this? The first edition version? Do you remember what year it
Yeah.
was?
I wrote the first edition version. I wrote it in 2007, as best I can tell.
Wow.
It's 3 computers ago, so I don't, you know what I mean? But I was able to trace an email back to where that was it. And like, it essentially came down to Joseph was like, do you want to do a dungeon for me? And me writing back to him saying, I have an idea for something that would really lean into plant monsters. My favorite AD&D monster is the Shambling Mound. And I kind of wanted to really put plant things front and center. And I love the idea of both an evil treant and then also a treant druid. I thought that'd be so fun to do like you know what I mean? Like it kind of makes sense to me that a treant, they're wise, they live a long time. Why not be a druid? Why not have druidical abilities
Hmm.
and connections? And then I thought, and then you take them and make them the worst. You know what I mean? Just terrible
Yeah.
monster.
And
So
and in 3E let you do that. 3E was all about templates and like, oh, give your goblins paladin levels or give your dragon sorcerer level, and
absolutely,
that's what I loved about 3E was
yeah,
was where you'd say that. You would say like a treant would make an amazing druid. Like I
yeah,
would be all over that. So
yeah.
where did you get the meteorite, the meteor angle to it? So was that like, where did you come up with, where did you like, oh, I should pair these two things, a meteor and a plant. So
I think I might have been digging down to I've always been fascinated with space stuff, like I said, and I've always wanted to write a science fiction adventure, but I'm terrified. Every time I've tried to write or run anything sci-fi, I'm always playing with somebody who understands science better than me, and then they make me feel bad, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. But I think that the idea of, to me, it's a little bit Lovecraft, it's a little bit like Color Out of Space. You know what I'm
okay,
saying?
okay.
And I think that the how to introduce a total wild card into what's really, you're talking about it, and an ecosystem. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, so this thing comes in and boom, just spreads this corruption. So it's like, really, it's not even Knockmort's fault. He's like, oh, a thing
Yeah,
fell. I'll go
not at all.
discover it, and then it corrupted him. And to me, that's the kind of villain I can really get behind. Someone who isn't like a cartoon, bad guy that's just like sitting around thinking evil thoughts all day, but that came in contact with a thing, extended metaphor, monster, whatever, that suddenly drives him to do all of this terrible stuff. You know what I mean? I love, I love that he was sympathetic like that in the early days.
Yeah,
So but it certainly came out of my love of sci-fi.
yeah, yeah. That's what
And
that.
that.
And it's funny you mentioned the Lovecraft connection there. I don't think I got that at first. Now I thinking back to it now, and I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah,
Like when I think Lovecraft, I always think something coming from the sea. I mean,
sure,
I
sure,
that's
sure, sure,
that's
sure.
usually my first thought is always, and everybody who says it's like, oh, we haven't explored the galaxy yet, but we haven't even explored our oceans, 10% of them or whatever. So it's like, so I don't think I was like with the whole Knockmore angle and the whole meteor. I don't think I was initially thinking love. Now I'm gonna look at it in a completely different
Yeah,
different different take there. And and I have to admit, I mean, Knockmore back in our old third edition days with Goodman Games is a Knockmore is one of the classic villains that we have.
Ah,
I mean, we put him on the cover of the box set. I mean, he's one of the villains on the box set. I mean, it's like it's one of those things where you're like, hey, do you remember those old third edition modules? And you're like,
oh yeah.
Knockmore, like, comes right out there. I'll give you a little secret too. One of my freelancers, when we were doing the monster book, actually created a monster in an homage to Knockmore.
Oh, no
So
kidding.
yeah, I'm not including the whole lore and everything, and
Oh, that's
it came out
awesome.
really awesome. And I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh, because I did this whole process of taking like ideas, and then I picked the ideas. As soon as that idea came across, I'm like, yep, we are taking that. Like that is
Oh,
coming. So you're gonna see some more Nakamura influences in our monster book. I wish I had
see,
the picture for it. I would have loved to show that off to
I
everybody.
love that though. That is so cool. Yeah,
So yeah, so
I
even
you know,
now, all these years later, like because let's see, that was published in 2008, 9, 8,
yeah,
9, something
it's
like that.
DCC number 10.
10, yeah. So that was early on. That was early on. It's just when we were getting the steam was just
Yeah,
getting up, and we
yeah,
were starting
yeah.
to pump them out. And the fact that somebody now in 2020, I think it was when she actually wrote the monster, just went back to that and was just like, hey,
Oh,
I'm gonna go for inspiration here. And I was like, I loved it. And it's like
oh,
such
me
a
too.
circle thing. So yeah, so there's gonna be a lot of cool stuff with that.
Well,
So
thank you, unknown 5e designer. That's awesome.
so cool. That's awesome. Do you have a favorite encounter from that adventure that you remember outside Knockmore's the logical one, but do you
Knockmort's
remember
Knockmort.
any of your
You
other?
know, yeah, I do. So the if you haven't seen it before, part of the premise is that he creates with a fragment of this meteorite. He uses it. He finds that he can grow plants underground without sunlight by using the meteorite to sort of like be what triggers their photosynthesis. And it also mutates them all and makes them really crazy, you know. And so there are there are two shambling mounds in there who are like super fast and like like almost like these like ninja, you know, plant monsters, which I've always wanted to do. So I'm very very fond of that. But if I had to pick one, the there's an owlbear down there who has discovered a patch of owlbear nip, and he's just like like rolling around in it like this. I love the idea that most famously vicious killer, that they found a thing in there that would like soothe him. And then I also like if you take him, you know, if you like, oh, he's tame, he'll be our friend, and then you bring him outside, and suddenly he's like he snaps out of the spell of it and just rips your entrails out. So so I love that. I love both of those. But yeah, the owlbear one, I was like, I'm sure that was when like I knew me and Joseph were going to get along, because I was kind of thought he'd be like, that's too ridiculous. He was like, oh, he was with it. So
Yeah, no,
I was
that's
very
cool.
very happy for that one, man.
Oh,
So
that's great. Great story. Great story. All right, let's talk about the Sea Strangers, Caverns of the Sea Strangers. So
yes,
let's talk about that. So I got a couple of cool questions on that because
sure.
again, I got to actually convert that, and I had an absolute blast in doing that. And folks, let me just tell you right now. So if you like old school feeling adventures, like an old just dungeon crawl kind of thing, this is it. It's perfect. It's got everything for it. So give me first, what was one of your main inspirations for that when you're doing that? And do you remember when was that 2010, 2011 ish,
Yeah,
somewhere in
that's
there?
right around 2010 is when
Yeah. Okay.
so Joseph wanted me to write an AD&D adventure kind of as a sample, and like let's see how this would work. What would it be like to
Yep.
put out a line of AD&D adventures? So I went back and reread a lot of those old classic adventures, you know what I mean? And like for me, Caverns of um
Yeah.
Forgotten, yeah, Caverns of Thrakia and Forgotten Temple of Tharizdun.
Yep.
I remember like thinking, those were like, while the adventure had flow through and it all made sense, it still also had a lot of varied encounters and a lot of like different things in there. It's like, oh, how can I do that? So
Hmm.
I really try to like channel my AD&D self and get in there and really like just get, kind of like dig down into it. I mean, that's where I came from. So
Yeah.
I really wanted to make it, I feel, absolutely as old school as possible, and but still make sense in the larger story. Here is this island, the sea strangers have taken over this place, and you have to go in and confront them, and there's more to them than meets the eye, and then if you go through the dungeon, like the whole thing, you actually, another influence was the sinister secret of Saltmarsh.
Nice.
which I
Nice.
love that adventure. I'll tell you,
Mhm.
I ran Sinister Secret of Salt Marsh for my mom when I was like
Wow. Wow.
12. She was such a
Wow.
good sport about it. You know what I mean? But like,
That's cool.
yeah, she was. I always tell this story. There's one encounter and there's a giant spider, and I'm like, okay, giant spider comes, and mom has her wizard has enlarge. She casts enlarge on her spell book and just mushes it.
Oh,
Like,
nice.
oh, big spider, big book. Here you go.
Yep.
That's yeah.
Smash.
I've
That's
always
cool.
loved that.
That's
So,
cool.
but if you go through that, like you make your way through, you find their secret cove and their boat. You can fight on there. So that was definitely an influence as well. I've always loved that adventure,
Yep.
and that's one like I've run that and played it like several times. Like I'm the one that I just happen to know really well because being a kid and we only owned so
Yeah.
many adventures and we all took turns. But so that was another big influence was that one. And like the exploration part of that was.
Cool. Now, where did the bull roarer inspiration come from? Because the bull roarer plays a pretty important part
Sure.
in the adventure. And I have to admit, when I first read that, I was like, bull roarer. Like, what the hell is a bull roarer? And I had to go look it up on it. And then I was like, oh, that's what that is. And it all kind of made sense then when I found out about it. So tell me a little bit about where,
Yeah,
because you must have gotten some inspiration on that. You were like,
I
that needs
did.
to be in an adventure.
I did, but I can't remember exactly which issue of X-Men it was. But at one point, so it's from the X-Men. The X-Men go to Australia, and I want to say they hook up with the Reavers. Someone who knows comic books better than me, like, can do it. But like one of the characters there they met, like had a bull roarer they could use as a power, and it would like open up into the dreaming. And that made me actually like. I was really interested in what it really sounded like, and then you hear one. This is terrible. He uses one in oh, I can't think of his name. That's a knife. That's a knife. What movie is
Oh,
that?
Crocodile Dundee. Yeah.
Crocodile Dundee.
Yes.
At one
Yes.
point, somebody has the
Yep.
bull roarer there. So when I was writing the adventure, I was thinking, what could you possibly do that would actually attract or where the dragon turtle could actually hear it enough.
Yep.
And I thought, okay, if you put that big droning thing on, it would kind of sound enough like whale song or something droning like that I could at least imagine that they could hear it underneath the waves a little bit, like it would reverberate. It wouldn't be like yelling, "Hey, you!" You couldn't give them a password.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those two things. I wish I could remember what part of the X crawl thing, but like one of the people they encountered in Australia was a bull roarer guy, and I was fascinated with one ever since. And yeah, it was like, oh, I'm putting that into a dungeon at some point. You know what I mean? Like, so.
That's great. This summer, when I was actually converting your adventure, I went to the National Natural Museum of the history, the Museum of Natural History. Oh, that's a hard one to say, in New York City. And sure enough, I was in the Australia exhibit, and there was a bull roarer, and I was like,
Oh, nice.
ah, and I'm like, I was just like, it's like I was just like doing stuff with a bull roarer. It's like it's kind of cool. It was one of those serendipitous moments where you're just kind of like, oh,
Isn't that
this is kind
nice?
of neat. It's like now I'm standing in front of one, and it's like I could wait. Does that mean I can actually like bill my ticket to Joe now? No, I can't do that.
You
So,
you can
but
certainly take
anyway,
it off your taxes.
that's true. That's true. So, but it's a donation anyway. So it is just a donation to get in there. So anyway, and it was money well spent because it was a great day. The gem exhibit. I spent so much time in the gem exhibit. It was amazing.
Wow.
Again, all you aspiring game masters out there, go to your a natural history museum and go to the gem exhibit, and just your socks will be blown off because gems are just amazing. So anyway, we get off on that. So yeah, well, I had a blast converting your adventure. Like I said, it came very easily to me
Nice.
because our voice is really an old school voice when even though we're doing 5e projects and everybody's like, oh, you guys are the 5e guys and everything, but we're trying to do them in like where you would be very familiar and comfortable with it from like the 70s and the 80s. That's kind of the feel that we go for. And like I said, when I read your adventure and Joe was just like, hey, what about this? And I was just like, yeah, I got like 2 pages into it, and I'm like, oh yes. It's like I didn't even finish reading it, and I was like, I'll do this. And
Oh, I
he's
love
like,
that.
great. And then I was like, I think I want to convert it because it's going to be fun. And it was. I had actually a blast in it once I got into it. It was
Oh,
so
I'm so
much fun.
glad.
Yeah, it was really good. And folks, you're gonna love it. It's like you got a classic crawl, and then you've got the hidden temple, which is kind of neat and everything. And tell us about the hidden temple. There's an Easter egg about that, like that piece of artwork that we used. Isn't that from
Yeah,
your
yeah.
house? Yeah.
So, okay, so you can picture it. I turned that adventure in, and then he gave it just to a couple of like hardcore AD&D fans, and it never went any further. He decided to discontinue the line, and I want to say that was one of the things that sort of pushed us towards Dungeon Crawl Classics. When he realized that an AD&D line wouldn't be perfect with what he was really going for, it was like, all right, time to make up my own system, you know. So there's if you go through there's a temple, and there's a real specific deity. And I should have pulled the manuscript out, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But it's got a very specific look. So so I turned that adventure in, and you know how it's frustrating. You know, I'm sure in your career you have turned in some writing that has never gone out to people. You know, it's frustrating. You feel like you wrote something and then just threw it down a canyon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just like, well,
Oh,
that's a thing I did. You know, no one's ever gonna. You're expressing yourself to an empty room of people who will never hear it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I hate that. I've got too many adventures like that that are all that I've completed, that I've turned in, and that are now never going to be seen by anybody. You could lose your mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, but you know, I'm flipping through my soft cover when I got my soft cover, and sure enough, he must have at least commissioned some basic art for the adventure, which was originally called something different. It was originally called something Escape from Catastrophe Rock was the original name for it,
Okay.
which was a parallel thing. Years later, it turned out that somebody else in the crew had a Catastrophe Rock thing. I wasn't going to mess with that. But it had like that piece of artwork found its way into the DCC core book in like the cleric section. It was like, so ever since I was like so excited to see that. You know, and like it's like a mystery piece to me. Like I would love to buy that original. I want that on a T-shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm like so excited about it. You know, but yeah, so it was cool, and it kind of gives you an insight into the process. Like Joe liked the piece of art and was waiting to do something with it. And when the core book came out, he's like, I got something for this. Boom. I love how he works it. That was back when he was also the art director. You know what I'm saying? Like when he wore literally every hat, not just the big hat. You know what I mean? So that's very cool. It's really cool for me. It's like to see like, he still had that. He was still waiting for a chance to use it. And I love the piece of art, you know? So
yeah, you never, I mean, I never throw anything away. I conceptualize adventures, and I'm like, it never goes anywhere, but I save all the notes and everything, because you don't know. You're like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, that's something we need. And it's like I remember that. And I'm like, you know, I did something like that. I've got the bones of it or everything. So yeah, that's a great story. Yeah. And I remember, folks, when I reached out to Brendan and told him I was going to actually do the conversion, and he was over the moon that he was like, that we were taking his, he's like, I can't believe this is sat for 10 plus years, and now it's going to see the light of day, and folks are gonna, you know, people are gonna hopefully die in that dungeon. So and he was like, he's like, gotta tell you, there's a piece of art, and it's like, it's from the DCC book, and he's like, you gotta put it in there. So you sent me, I think, a shot of
I took a cell phone picture with it. Yeah.
And he said, find this piece of art, and it's like, have Matt find it, and it's like, put it in the mod, and we did. So it's in there. So you guys can see there's one piece of art that might look a little grainy and look not quite up to our standards these days, but there's a reason for that. It's because it's a classic piece of art that we wanted to pay homage to the original, and thus we did. So
I love that. Makes me happy as hell.
So, all right. Well, we are about out of time. Brendan, I must thank you for all of everything. So being, now I can officially say you're part of the 5e family. You know, and I love it, and I'm so proud that we got 2 of your adventures come out. I'm thankful that you had the time to come on this show with us and talk about your stuff, and hopefully get some folks excited about it.
Absolutely. It's a real honor, and I'm so happy to have something in the realm of 5th edition. And I really hope, if you're watching this or you're checking this out on YouTube, I really hope that you enjoy it, and that you have, you know, that it, you know, may both of them give every satisfaction, you know.
Yeah, and check out Brendan's other stuff. I mean, he's written a ton of stuff for DCC, or play in one of his games at one of our conventions or something. I mean, I'm telling you guys, you will love the DCC system after you've played it for 3 or 4 hours with Uncle Brendan, as
Uncle
I like to
Brendan.
call you. So
Totally fine.
thank you so much. Elena, big shout out, thank you to you for working all the behind the scenes magic with all the images. Many thanks there. Also got to thank Matt for throwing together a lot of the images and the
Word.
previews of the books and everything. So we'll make sure we thank everybody. Talking TSR, folks, is coming up not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, the 23rd, 8 p.m. And that is a very special show. That is our top 10 classic TSR adventure modules of all time that Rick and I will both be doing, presenting our top 10s. And I've been going back and forth with it on how we're making our lists up, and it's pretty exciting what we're going through to come up with these lists. So everybody check us out then. This will be posted on YouTube at some point in a few
And if you're
days.
watching, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell button so we can
Yep.
continue to send you amazing content over time.
Because you never know when we're going to drop another awesome show.
Bam.
So, all right. Thanks a lot, Brendan. And thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody, for sticking with us and all that. And everybody have a great evening. And we'll see you guys soon.